School shooters rarely survive and almost never speak publicly if they do. Yet 20 years after bringing a shotgun to his New York high school and opening fire, John Romano says he's speaking out to prevent school shootings from happening again.
I'm also trying to fill in the blanks for people.
While no one was killed in his attack, John injured one teacher. He served 17 years in prison and upon his release began sharing his life story on TikTok, where he now has nearly 300,000 followers.
We can reach out to the youth and be proactive.
Among his most unlikely supporters is Scarlett Lewis, the mother of a student killed in a separate shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary.
I do believe that he's being sincere.
Why are they joining forces, and what can they do together to prevent tragic shootings from happening in the future? We drove to Connecticut to find out.
Very rare that you not only get somebody who has committed a shooting who survives, but also ends up out of prison. So here I am, I'm also trying to fill in the blanks for people.
20 years ago today, you walked into your high school with a shotgun. Talk about the decisions of that day.
A lot of it came from hopelessness, where I didn't believe that I had a positive future going forward. I had given in to the despair within me that I believed my life was worthless without meaning or purpose. Every avenue I'd tried to take to get back on track had gone wrong. Unfortunately, I wanted to take it out on the people I blamed for it going wrong. I did spread a lot of pain and suffering that I know many people are feeling to this day and on this day. And there's nothing I can do to take that pain away, but I do my best to be here and to share my experience of why I did what I did so that we can prevent others from doing what I did and prevent other families and communities from experiencing what my community went through.
When I was 16 years old, I went into my high school with a shotgun. And my intent was not to kill, but to be killed in a very public fashion while also traumatizing my fellow classmates and teachers. Some people claim no, that the only reason why I didn't shoot and kill anybody was because I was grabbed before I had the opportunity to do so. This is the view I had down the hallway when I came around the corner. Two students came around the other corner 40 feet away on the left. But here you can see I fired up and away from them, hitting the higher part of the wall. And now you'll see where it hit up in the ceiling. The second shot after they ran away, I aimed to the right and shot at the wall. And the third shot would happen later on when I was struggling to gain control of the gun from the vice principal. And sadly, a teacher was hit in the shin and most of the pellets went into the ground.
And you spent 17 years behind bars for your crime, got out and started kind of sharing a message that you're talking about now on TikTok and have found hundreds of thousands of followers who are listening to this message. Why do you think you found an audience?
Initially, when I got onto social media, it was to talk a lot about prison.
This is a cell block in Auburn Correctional Facility where I was released from. This is Clinton Correctional Facility, another prison I was at. And they do have heaters.
And then it morphed and I talked about mental health issues. Then I talk about now what led me to commit this horrible tragedy that I did and how we can help others. And I think that there's so many unknowns when dealing with all of these issues.
What should you do if somebody you know seems to be on a dark path? Mental health reforms are needed. Education for all, and especially the young.
You came out of prison and found work at a homeless shelter. Talk about your work there, and then an incident that almost ended your life.
I came home and was lucky enough to have other jobs. I knew I wanted to do something more meaningful where I was able to help people. And I reached out to the homeless shelter in Albany and I said, I want to volunteer. Sure enough, I started volunteering. And they said, you know what, we've got a position open. We like how you're interacting with everybody. You know, why don't you put in an application, we'll interview you. And I started working there. And that job, I mean, in one way, it saved my life. It gave me that meaning and purpose. My life does have the ability to turn around and do something good for the community that I once hurt. Unfortunately, I'd been working there for about 9 months when an individual who was severely mentally ill ended up attacking me himself.
You know, he catches me in the stairway and knocks me down, and I'm lying on the stairs, and I start trying to fight him off. I'm kicking at him, and he just starts swinging the swords, and he's chopping up my legs real bad, and I'm still holding them up even as they're falling apart, and I start holding up my arms, and just starts chopping away again, and my arms start to basically fall apart.
But thankfully, I was able to survive. I learned that I have more fight in me than I thought I had, because the depression's always been there within me. I'm not going to do anything to kill myself. But if something happens, I'm not going to fight it. I fought it, and it surprised me.
And I don't have the use of my arms, my hands, my legs, or my feet.
So I went from committing a horrible, senseless act of violence to being the victim of a horrible, senseless act of violence. And I almost died. I don't know why I'm still alive, but I am. So I'm trying to make the best of it. You know, this isn't my second chance, this is my third chance.
You committed a senseless act of violence. In some ways, people would say the act is karma. What's your response to that?
I'm still alive. So then if it was karma, or if it was God, the universe wants me to be alive. I can no longer work with my hands, so I have to work with my voice. So here I am sharing my story and trying to speak up and use my voice for as much good as possible.
Talk about that voice. And you've talked a little bit about how TikTok has been part of this ecosystem, but what are the things you're reading? Who's listening to you, and what's kind of the reaction you're finding?
When I first came home from prison, I actually had some local police reach out to me and they say, hey, we hear that you want to help out. We have school resource officers, we have a conference coming up. Would you be willing to speak? And I said, yeah, of course, I would love to. So I was able to speak with law enforcement, share my story, share what led me to do what I did, and also a bit about how we can better prevent these things from happening. And it went from local police, then the FBI actually heard about it, and the FBI reached out to me. I'm already on social media, why not talk directly to everybody? The parents, the teachers, the law enforcement, kids themselves, anybody who wants to hear this message should hear this message.
What is it that you want them to take away?
Most school shooters or mass shooters, period, want to die themselves as well. So they either die at their own hands or they're going to die at the hands of the police. So it's very rare that you not only get somebody who has committed a shooting who survives, but also ends up out of prison. And so here I am. I'm also trying to fill in the blanks for people, because without anybody speaking out, we don't get answers. And I also want to speak to those who may be struggling. And I've had many people reach out to me and talk about how they themselves are in that darkness. They themselves are in that depression and have thought about hurting themselves, have thought about hurting others. And you know what? My message of hope, my message of you can turn your life around. You don't have to give into that darkness. You can fight through it. That message resonates with a lot of people.
Why do you want a school shooter to have a platform on this app when clearly nobody else wants him to?
It almost seems like there's some type of narrative to make John Romano seem like he was an innocent boy that was hurting.
Those who were harmed by the violent crime are the ones who determine if and when restorative justice takes place, not the perpetrator.
Many question John's intent on social media. I spoke with Dr. Ann Balboni, who specializes in the trauma of first responders after mass shootings. What's kind of your reaction after seeing his clips and hearing him speak on social media?
I find that very scary, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he lacks a complete understanding of what he's done to put himself in a position of authority. When he's a criminal, he's a shooter. He destroyed lives.
What, if anything, do you think someone in this situation should do?
I certainly wouldn't go on TikTok with it. I would try to quietly and kind of behind the scenes provide that kind of information for people, the mental health professional community, that might profit from knowing what worked and what didn't work.
John, how do you respond to people who believe you don't deserve to be forgiven and certainly don't deserve to have a platform on TikTok?
I don't ask for forgiveness. As far as me having a platform, I understand that it's controversial because some people think that I'm still a threat. However, if I can do something so horrible and yet be rehabilitated and be working towards prevention, that means that even those who are currently in that dark place, that they too can.
Among his most unlikely supporters is Scarlett Lewis, a mother who lost her child in the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. Now you've embraced and you're working with someone who was a convicted school shooter. Why?
The question of the day is why people commit violence like that. Why do they do that? I never got a chance to talk to Adam Lanza. He killed himself at the scene. And, I dedicated my life to being part of the solution to these issues. I knew that what happened at Sandy Hook was 100% preventable. I've spent the last 11 years of my life really researching and addressing the root cause of what led to my son's murder, but also leads to so many other diseases of despair that continue to escalate in our society. My approach is going to the root cause and not continuing to do what we do over and over again and expecting a different result. If that means going straight to these young people who are in so much pain and asking them what we could have done to keep them from doing what they did, what needs they had that weren't met, if there's a way that I can work with these young men to try to keep other kids safe and help people who are in pain, I will do that.
And you created an organization, Choose Love. That feeling is not the one most people have after reacting to a school shooting. How do you choose love as a first reaction after something like this?
It wasn't necessarily my very first reaction, but I came home to my farmhouse where I raised Jesse.
Where we are now.
Where we are right now. And he had written a message on our kitchen chalkboard, nurturing, healing, love, 3 words. He was 6 years old. And I saw that and I thought, that's the solution. Because people that feel good about themselves, people that can give and receive love, they don't want to harm themselves or other people. That's the solution. I'm going to enhance that in schools, homes, and communities across the country. And that's what I've been doing ever since, every day.
It's pretty extraordinary to see you, the mother of someone who was killed in a school shooting, coming and embracing and now working with a school shooter. Talk about how that came to be.
One of his TikToks, I listened to it and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know if he was genuine and I wanted to learn from him, actually. So I contacted him. We had a really nice conversation. He explained why he did what he did and where he is now. I thought that was a message that we needed to hear.
John, talk about what it was like to get the call from Scarlett.
When she first reached out to me, I was overwhelmed, to be honest. I've had many conversations with people who have survived school shootings. I've spoken with family members who have had somebody shot but survived. She was honestly the first person that I'd spoken to who had lost somebody in a school shooting. And I was scared that it would also be more maybe hurtful for her in the long run. But she convinced me that no, I've spoken with others and I want to speak with you as well. And we've had many great conversations since. I'm inspired by her, honestly. She's been showing us that you can actually walk the walk that so many people talk about. You can actually go through with it and live life with the virtues that we all aspire to have.
Why would you want to work, though, with someone who'd committed a crime like that?
John's a human being. When he committed the crime, he was a child in pain. These are kids committing these crimes. Because they're in so much pain, they don't know what else to do. And that's our responsibility. And so I think that John's going to be, he has been just an excellent ambassador for the Choose Love movement.
John, talk about what the day-to-day means All these years later, 20 years later,
It's an anniversary that has a lot of pain and anguish, but now we're talking about how we can heal others' pain and anguish, how we can prevent others' pain and anguish. Today's a very powerful day for us to all come together to talk.
I truly believe that we all deserve a second chance to a certain degree. What a better person to show that there's a different choice. That's really where we need to be right now.